0-2 pitch, swing and a miss, struck him out. The Philadelphia Phillies are 2008 World Champions of Baseball.
Lining up, Adrian Noble, and here it comes. The kick, connects.
Philadelphia Eagles are Super Bowl champions. Eagles fans everywhere, this is for you.
Standing in at 5'8", weighing in at 175 pounds, Darby Allin is quite the enigma in wrestling. While there have been many wrestling greats in this business that found success despite their stature, Darby Allin faces that criticism more than anybody. Many look at Darby Allin and see a man that does not fit their mental image of a wrestler. Even when Darby took upon the half-dead gimmick, painted his face and tattooed his body to stand out, many continue to write off Allin. To many, Allin simply could not be seen as believable when standing amongst his larger colleagues. But to me, Allin is one of the greatest Davids we've seen in a business filled with Goliaths. Throughout his entire career, Allin has faced off against many foes that towered over him, many foes that seemingly had the odds stacked against him. And whether it was in victory or defeat, Allin proved he can hold his own, and even tell a story much deeper than just the smaller man pulling off the upset. His most recent instance is his match on AEW's Fyter Fest against Brody King. King stands in at 6'5", weighing 285 pounds. Allin and King have a long-standing rivalry that is just now making its way to AEW TV. Allin starts off the match trying to outspeed the Giant. He knocks King to the outside and goes for his patent dive just to be caught and flung into the barricade. Allin tries to use his speed, but from this point on, King is in control. Chops, sentons, even seeing King just ragdolling Allin across the ring as he's nearly dropped on his head. King is in control for the majority of this match. Allin has to think of something he can do to buy time. Temporarily immobilize the Giant, perhaps. Speed clearly isn't working, so Allin decides it's time to outsmart this Giant. While crawling away to the other side of the ring, Allin removes his belt and rolls out. When King goes to retrieve him, Allin wraps the belt around King's ankles and drops the beast. Allin goes right back into overdrive and dives out onto the immobilized Giant. The momentum has turned. Or so you'd think. Allin runs into King, who is now backed into one of the corners and is immediately caught. Hanging by his feet, King goes for his patented corner cannonball, but Allin moves out of the way and hits the code red on King, an impressive feat for his size, and when King kicks out of it, he transitions it straight into a submission maneuver. But it is not nearly enough, as King escapes and cannonballs into the corner with Allin on his back. Calling back to the Battle Royale just a couple weeks before, Allin tries to hit a move on King on the outside apron, but is immediately put into a sleeper. Allin is just slowly able to beat the 10 count, but it isn't enough, as King immediately picks Allin up and hits him with the Gonzo Bomb. After the match, King continues to attack Allin in hopes of luring out Allin's mentor Sting, and it works, but it is all a trap as King's faction leader Malachi Black comes out. The two attack both men, only to be interrupted by another Goliath that Allin has faced in the past, Miro. Miro, the Bulgarian brute, comes in at 6 feet but weighs a whopping 304 pounds. During this time in 2021, Miro had recently broken away from his best man gimmick with Kip Sabian and started going back to his Bulgarian brute gimmick. Allin was the current TNT champion, the longest reigning champion. Allin entered into this situation as a David in two different cases. He obviously was the David in the sense of his size, but he's also the David in the sense that despite being champion, the longest reigning champion so far, nobody thinks he can come into this match and escape with the win. Even with Miro coming off of a lackluster gimmick, Allin was in a feud with Ethan Page and Scorpio Sky and was thrown down a flight of stairs the week prior. As he's making his entrance, Allin is attacked by Miro, already starting the match without the advantage. The match hasn't even started and Miro is tossing Allin all over ringside. But Allin is used to this. He still gets up and gets the match finally started, only to be immediately kicked in the face. However, Allin is still able to kick out and gets out of the ring. As Miro follows him, Allin, similarly to the last match, uses his speed to his advantage. But similar to the last match, it only works for a short amount of time. He's able to get a couple of dives off, but is caught and suplexed by Miro. And here, we see something that can only be an oddity. Despite going against a man known as a brute, Allin tries matching Miro strike for strike, only for it to fail. Similar to the last match, Allin is forced to think about what he can do. Speed is not working, going out of his moveset and trying to fight Miro style doesn't work, and worst of all, Allin doesn't really have the time to either recover or truly think about what can he do. Miro is constantly on the attack, never giving Allin time to breathe, but Allin sees some hope as he puts a choke on Miro. If his attacks don't do any damage to the Goliath, maybe he can put the giant to sleep. But Miro's size allows him to power through and reach the ropes. Miro rolls to the outside, but Allin continues the attack and puts the sleeper back on him. Allin even grabs Miro's nose to try and limit his airways. But this powerful beast is too much as he rams him into the barricade. As the two make it back to the ring and continue to fight, Allin sees a glimmer of hope. Miro is down and Allin attempts his coffin drop, only to be caught in suplex. But Allin lands on his feet and rolls up Miro for a close 2. He then hits a code red, only for Miro to miraculously power out. He tries a submission, only for Miro to put his own onto Allin. Allin passes out right in front of his mentor Sting. His reign comes to an end, all as Miro looks down on Allin with pity. Once again, David is defeated, but puts up a fight that many did not expect him to make. But what about when the Goliath in question isn't out to punish? The last two events took place in recent times. For the next 2 instances, let's rewind the clock back to 2018. Allin only has 3 years of experience. He's currently wrestling in a promotion called Evolve. Now during this time, Allin, along with another up-and-comer, Austin Theory, were challenged by William Regal to become the breakout star of 2018. Theory looked to have the lead on Allin, having won the FIP World Heavyweight Championship. Meanwhile, Allin won the opportunity to challenge Zack Sabre Jr. for the Evolve Championship. Allin would go on to lose the match, but not by his own means. In Allin's words, he never gave up, as in the match, Allin would pass out to a combination of Sabre's submission move and kicks to the head. At Evolve 99, Allin would enter a feud with a certain wrestler to be named later. The basis here was that this wrestler did not believe Allin belonged in a wrestling ring. Again, Allin is only a third-year competitor at this point, but is looking to not only live up to William Regal's challenge, but prove that he does belong in this business. At Evolve 102, Allin gets the chance to battle against WWN champion Keith Lee, though the match is non-title. Keith Lee is a mountain of a man, standing at 6'2", weighing 332 pounds. Lee is also different from our previous 2 giants that Allin has encountered. While King was out for vengeance and Miro was out for punishment, Lee is simply just another competitor in this fight. In terms of Allin's feud with the other wrestler, Lee has no dog in this fight. He is simply champion and wants to see what Allin can bring on. Allin, however, has so much more going on. He's being outpaced by Austin Theory. He gave his all trying to win the Evolve Championship, and now has to deal with a man who echoes the criticism of everyone who believes Allin is not worthy of being a wrestler. He's got a lot to prove in this match, and Lee knows that. But much like the previous matches, fighting Goliath is not going to be easy. The match starts with Lee already ragdolling Allin around the ring. Allin goes to his patented fast-paced offense and gets 2 dives to the outside on Lee, but it comes back to bite him, as Allin runs the ropes and springboards only to get pounced by Keith Lee. As Lee gets more and more offense on Allin, you begin to see the difference. The crowd is continuously cheering on Keith Lee, even begging for him to inflict more damage onto Allin. All just feeding into Allin's mentality of proving the critics wrong. Lee, being the nobleman he is, keeps trying to get Allin to simply stay down. Anytime he does a move, it isn't out of anger, but just simply tired of seeing Allin attempt to win in instances that he just can't. Unlike the previous matches, Allin gets his fair bit of offense in here. He hits many springboard moves and even a code red on Lee. He even lands strikes on Lee, but Lee is constantly overpowering Allin. Lee hits the spirit bomb on Allin, completely flipping him. But Lee doesn't cover him, almost out of pity. So Allin claws his way back up to his feet and slaps Keith Lee in the face, only to be hit with Keith Lee's ground zero for the loss. As Keith Lee begins to cut a promo right after, as he has a match the next night against Allin's rival Austin Theory. But Allin, slowly again, crawls his way to Lee. And this confuses Lee, but as Allin crawls up, he tells Keith Lee to continue fighting him, to keep whooping him. But Keith just looks at him with a face of pity and just spares him and walks away. Another giant getting the best of David. So at this point in the story and in the video, you're probably saying to yourself, Jack, how is Darby Allin an example of David when he's consistently losing to Goliath? How is he David when it seems like all his tactics are thwarted by the superior opponent? Well, to put it simply, in wrestling, David versus Goliath matchups are more about the story told and how unique the story can be told. What way can you defer the story from its original telling? Would every David and Goliath match be interesting if David always conquered the Goliath? Would the second Ilya Dragunov versus Walter match have been as interesting if Dragunov had toppled Walter in their first bout? And see, that's where the story and context comes into everything. Brody King versus Darby Allin told the story of Goliath feeling slighted by his opponent and wanting to unleash that anger upon him. It told the story of Allin's own offense being his downfall, as each dive led to the stronger King turning it into his own offense. Even when Allin tried to outsmart the beast, strength overpowered. Miro versus Allin told the story of a broken down Allin after months of being champion simply being overpowered and overwhelmed by the strength of Miro. And Lee versus Allin told the story of a Goliath that has no ill will towards Allin, simply pity that his fellow competitor could not recognize when he is outmatched. All losses at the hands of the giants. But what about when the story goes as originally told? What about when David finally puts all the pieces together and topples Goliath? Well, that is when you get Darby Allin versus wrestling's final boss. As mentioned, Allin was in a feud with another wrestler in Evolve. Much like Lee, Allin was going to face this opponent the very next night. Unfortunately, Allin was injured, and thus his defining moment of proving he belonged in wrestling was postponed. At that same event he was supposed to compete at, Austin Theory would defeat Keith Lee to become a double champion. So, not only was Allin robbed of his defining moment, but his rival is continuing to outpace him. Leading up to their rescheduled match, Allin's opponent is interviewed, and he states that while he respects Allin's work ethic, a man with a painted face and chaotic wrestling style does not belong in this respected business. But there's two sides to a coin. See, Allin's wrestling style is very much reflective of the life he's had to live up until this point. At a young age, Allin lost his uncle in a car crash. His uncle had crashed with Allin in the car after becoming intoxicated. Allin took upon the half-skulled look to signify that a part of him died in that crash. Allin gave up on wrestling in his teens, years after feeling he didn't match the look, even stating that he walked in, saw the physique the stature of many of them, and knew that they wouldn't take him seriously. Later in life, Allin would be homeless, and in his words, he was living off of $5 a day before he decided to get back into wrestling. Allin, a man that already knows he doesn't fit the image of wrestling. A man who already knows he's fighting an uphill battle trying to get people to believe in him. But Evolve 106 is the place where he can finally silence everybody, including his biggest critic, Walter. Walter comes in at 6'4", weighing around 310 pounds at the time. Walter is a man regarded as one of wrestling's final bosses, a man whose stiff style truly makes people believe and realize that the actual wrestling is real. Chops that will leave a man's chest looking like a red onion. Strikes that knock your sweat into the 8th row. Kicks that will turn an opponent's head like that of an owl. A man, no, a Goliath of this stature going against Allin. And not only that, but with the point to prove that Allin does not belong in this respected business. And so similarly to many of the previous encounters, even though they would come years down the line, Allin tries his quick offense but is outmatched like his previous encounters. He's thrown into the ring post, he's chopped, smacked, and kicked in his mouth till he's bleeding. He's just constantly being thrown around and brutalized. In and out of the ring, he simply stands no chance. Any move he attempts is simply shrugged off by Walter. But where David is outclassed in strength, he makes up for it in wisdom and faith. Allin begins to target Walter's hands. The man can't strike and chop if his hands are out of the equation. He stomps on them, runs Walter's shoulder into the metal ring post. Walter tries a powerbomb, only for it to be countered into a code red. Allin gets Walter into a sleeper, and when he tries to break the hold with a punch, anguishes in pain with the earlier punishment he received to his hand. Still, Walter attempts to utilize his hands as best he could, but again, any attempt will result in the blow dealing twice the damage back to Walter. And finally, in the closing moments, Walter gets Allin in his patent sleeper, much like his match with Lee and the matches that would come years down the line with Miro and King. It looks like once again Allin is overpowered. Until Walter lays back to really cinch in the sleeper, and it is here that Goliath is outsmarted as Allin turns it into a pin for the victory. Allin, through his own wits, immobilizes the Giant's main form of offense and sneaks a pin for the win. Many would see the roll-up as cliché or a form that doesn't make Allin look as strong as completely toppling the Giant. But remember the story at hand. Allin proved that he can work a methodical style and outsmart the ring general. Allin proved that despite his size, he can use his style and smarts to maneuver his way to a victory. That despite his size, a man like Allin belongs in this business often referred to as the land of the giants.